all these cars have real-time telemetry, so everything that's going on in these cars, almost 100 mouth channels, gets beamed back to the pit lane to all the engineers sitting on pit lane, so they can see in their computers exactly what's going on with the car. One of them, obviously, is fuel, along with tire pressure, and amongst all the things, they'll come up with a strategy for the race itself for the driver.
Get back in the field a little bit. 19 is Zachary Clayton DeMello, the rookie drivers in the field, followed by 6 Robert Wickens. There's Clayton DeMello out of Montreal. Was not supposed to be in this race. That was supposed to be Pietro Fittipaldi, the grandson of the two-time winner. But Fittipaldi injured in a sports car racing crash over at Spa-Francorchamps. I talked to him in the Gasoline Alley area yesterday. He had surgery. He's here. He's moving around. His rehab's going well. He expects to be back in the INDYCar series by the Mid-Ohio race this summer, which would be a terrific recovery from what was an awful crash. There's Wickens. There's Munoz. Carlos Munoz.
The biggest difference I have noticed from the last 4 years is the cars cannot get as close to the corners as they had done in the past. And because of that, it's very difficult to draft past the car because you're not accelerating off the corner faster than the car that's in front of you. So this is going to play a lot into how this race ends.
And I think you're exactly right. And I think the other thing that we're seeing right now, I mentioned that it rained in the overnight, took some of the rubber off the racetrack. Cars are going to be a little different than what they finish up with on final practice on Friday. They'll be tuning on those cars. We talked about, as Rick mentioned, some of the tools inside there. They can change the weight distribution of the car by pushing a button on the steering wheel and also move the roll bars in the car front and rear. Now, you and I have roll bars on a road car. They're non-adjustable. Drivers tune their cars to the conditions. After every stop, I think we're going to see the pace start to pick up.
And let's talk about the engine battle. Of the top 8 cars, 7 of them are Chevys, and only one with Bourdais in 5th place is a Honda.
Graham Rahal picking up another spot.
And I'm not so sure James Davison did not have a problem up there in turn 3 or 4. He looked very slow off the pace, maybe got some dirty air from the car in front and ended up going up the road. These cars, they have that understeer, and you can see
this is not where you want. This is not where you want to get off the throttle. You're right. He absolutely had something. What was all that about?
What's up with Davison's car?
The situation is he was on the radio early on saying that the car was loose. They said, hang in there, hang in there. We're seeing an example of what happens if you hang in there too long. If you have one end that's not working, it goes away in a hurry. James Davison, a classic example.
That's J.R. Hildebrand in the blue, orange, and white car that just picked up a spot on Charlie Kimball in that corner. Davison, of course, has crashed once already in the week this week, a heavy crash. Left him battered pretty good as he's going to lose his spot here to Oriol Servia.
He's created an enormous bottleneck behind him.
And Eddie, you know what ends up happening when a car goes back in front of you. Your car gets to be more nervous, more undrivable. So every time a car passes him, he has more risk to actually lose control of the car. But you're right, the bottleneck behind him has created just a traffic jam.
And the leader is catching the tail end of the field, and that's Ed Carpenter at the back of that pack, right behind the double wide.
And watch for Ed to pit. He won't want to be wasting time here. He'll slip into the pits, I'm sure.
Danica Patrick, the first one to pit. Rick?
Yeah, early on, Jan was talking about the question, do you go for fuel or do you go for tires? Well, in this case, it's tires and the concern about the balance of the car. They were concerned about that. As a result, they said they're going to take half a turn of wing out and send her back out. There you see they make that adjustment and send her back out into this race.
Boy, Davidson sure has changed the complexion of this race early on. Right now, Carpenter has to find a way to carve his way through all those cars. If not, he'll get passed by Pagano.
Here's Tony Kanaan in.
Tony Kanaan, remember, he was fastest on carb day, the last practice before we got to the INDY500. They're going to make a wing adjustment on his car as well. Hasn't been saying an awful lot about the car in terms of its condition, other than it's time to make a minor change. Nice clean stop.
Oh yeah, that's them.
Rick mentioned that wing change. Tony Kanaan was probably complaining about understeer where the front doesn't react. The wing change will take care of that.
Here come the leaders to pit road. Simon Pagano and Carpenter both in. A few others follow them in. Castroneves will also come in. Back of that line, that's Charlie Kimball in between Pagano and Castroneves.
We started these trials to help children not.
Well, Simon Pagano bringing the car down. He was very happy on Friday. In fact, he said he had about a car that was about a 95 out of 100 in terms of where it was going to go and what it was going to do. He has not been complaining much about the car overall, but still a minor wing change. Front
wing change for Ed Carpenter. A little bit to try to help the understeer in the corner. Carpenter away. He will go out in front of Pagano. Ed Carpenter has not complained one bit about the car, but they're trying to think ahead. That's why they made the front wing change, to be able to get a little more front steer in the car in traffic.
There's a set of narratives.
Joseph Newgarden took over the lead when Pagano and Carpenter pitted. Now Newgarden is on the pit lane along with a whole host of others. Power, Bourdais, Dixon, Marco Andretti, Ryan Hunter-Ray all in on this stop.
A wound that the Russians want to rub
There is
salt
Newgarden.
in. For instance,
Defending series
the
champion
Zelensky
Joseph
squad,
Newgarden,
that
they've
he is
commented a little
using
bit
Western-made money
about
to
making a
buy
wing change. Now they're saying a half a turn of front wing. They said air pressure. No, it'll be air pressure only on the side for Newgarden, trying to help the car turn a little bit with air pressure only.
This was a narrative that not only went viral on social media,
Dixon is away.
but it was
Bourdais fitting back into
repeated
line ahead of
by
Marco Andretti.
various U.S. policymakers.
Spencer Pigot has taken over the lead by not pitting yet.
in the hole for the Ukraine conflict. Why? So that one of
Can't
Zelensky's
cross that
ministers can buy a
line
bigger yacht.
between the turns
It's
1 and
these
2
false
areas
Russian
on the warm-up
narratives
lane
repeated
with all
over and
4
over and
tires.
over
You can
again.
put the left
And
side tires
you
all the way
can't
over on that
get me
line,
to
but you can't have all 4
that
across.
That doesn't have some effect on how a
Blair
large
Julian
portion
just changed the
of
outside front
Americans
tire
view
on
war in
Scott
Ukraine.
Dixon's car. Here's what it looks like at
They're
Indianapolis.
trying to
We'll come back after a
not
word
tell
from your
people
ABC station.
what to think. They're trying to influence the conversation.
After Trump won the election in 2024, I
Just
think
about 100
Russia
miles
really
into
turned
the
its
Indianapolis
focus
500-mile
to
race
Europe,
through the first round of
where
green flag
the
pit
real
stops,
support
and
for
Ed
Ukraine will
Carpenter
remain.
has maintained the lead.
Certainly these
He's up by a
issues
second
are
and a
taken more
third on
seriously,
Tony
but
Kanaan, with Joseph
they
Newgarden,
are
Simon
much more
Pagano, and
targeted
Helio Castro
by
Neves.
Russian
Rounding out
disinformation.
the top 5, a penalty just served by Kyle Kaiser in the 32 for hitting personnel on pit road. He just made a pass-through penalty and has served that penalty.
And back to Carpenter, he just did the fastest lap of the race with a 2:23.7. So he definitely has a car to dominate today. Did his first pit stop without having any problems.
New tires, adjustment with the wing, and all of a sudden the car's now settled in. Rubber's coming on the racetrack. As I mentioned, starting to see those speeds start to increase. Tune your car all day long. Report back to the pits what your car is doing. The engineers can see that real-time telemetry you guys spoke about. The winner today is going to be tuning his car, chasing track conditions and weather conditions
with the
all day
allegations
long.
against him
Right now, I don't
was
see
shared
anybody that
by
can
a
touch
German
Ed.
language influencer who hosts a lot of
Hey guys, one of the reasons they think the team thinks that Carpenter was going to be good and now he is good today is because remember back on pole day when everything is on the edge, he said when the car's on the ragged edge and grip is minimal and the track is slippery, our guy, Ed Carpenter, goes out there and turns laps at 230 miles an hour. He is fearless and he finds a way to make the car fast when you have minimal to no grip. We think this is going to be his kind of day. It's hot, the tires are hot, grip is minimal, and guess what? So far, they're right.
So many people have so much passion for this place, but for Ed, it is deeply personal. You see his finishes in the last few years when he started on the front row. He's not able to put together the result on race day that he's wanted. Once was in contention, got swept up in a crash by another driver. Others had a mechanical issue, but today hoping to put all 500 miles together and score what would be obviously a massive
His
win.
post got
Every
half a
lap he
million
does in the
views.
lead
It
is
was also
one
posted
more
by someone
lap
else and got
of confidence
almost
that
4
he's
million
building into himself.
The German
That will
authorities
come in
called this
very
out,
handy at
warning
the end of the
public not
race.
to believe
He
it,
still
saying
has a strong
the
car.
paper is different, the typeface is different, but
And the true question right now is when you start to get up to the traffic that he's running up to now, the cars that are at the back end of the grid, once he gets close to them, he will now find out how his car works in that traffic, that disturbed air.
Exactly.
Now,
Well,
with this
AFD,
new car, with the
Germany's
reduced
far-right
downforce,
party, it
that's
is
when the cars are at their worst. This is going to be the
has
test for
called
Ed
for closer
Carpenter.
ties
I
with
totally agree.
Moscow,
And I remember a race where that
called for
happened. I think it was
lifting sanctions
94 or
from Russia.
95 where you could not get
In
by
the
anybody
election,
because
the
you
AFD
could not
got
get close enough in the corner.
which was
So
over double
this is
what
the
they'd
last
gotten
big
4 years
hurdle
earlier.
speed-wise that he's
On
going
the
to have to
other
jump
hand,
over because
the
you will
Green
be in
Party's
traffic
vote
the whole
share
time. He could
fell,
lose
and Robert
3 or
had
4
a
miles
right
an
to
hour
resign his
easily
parliamentary seat.
behind a car that he can't pass.
So you see Carpenter, then the lap car of Oriol Serbia, that white car, then Tony Kanaan, the former winner, up to second after starting back in 10th. Mentioned he made some bold moves on the first lap, and Rick, they got the pit strategy and the pit stop executed just right as well.
Well, exactly. And it's interesting because on car day, I was talking to Tony Kanaan about the car. Going in, he said, we're just a couple of adjustments away from having the car exactly where I want it. And even if we don't have it, it'll still be a good car. After carb day, I went up to him and I said, hey, how is it? Did those adjustments work? He goes, I'm not telling you. I have a feeling that means they work.
That's funny. Of course, Kanan driving this year for A.J. Foyt. A.J. here looking for what would be his third win as an entrant in the 500, surviving another bout with those killer bees that he seems to keep stumbling across on his ranch outside of Houston. No, I'm talking about passion for this place. Can you imagine how happy A.J. Foyt would be to give Tony Kanaan that big old kiss on the cheek if they're standing in victory lane at the Indy 500?
And how happy Kanaan would be
Yes.
to get that big bear hug from AJ here
on this front
at the 500.
to expose foreign-backed
Long way to go
disinformation.
before that
And I
happens.
think with
Just
US
past 100
agencies
miles in the
standing
race.
down on
Ed
this front,
Carpenter
it's really Europe that's
out in
left
front.
monitoring it and trying to expose it and trying to regulate the social media
And guess what it
giants.
is?
Right behind.
Who is the other car?
Storm 1516 has
Yellow is out at
captured
Indianapolis.
eyeballs
James
right now
Davison has
under
crashed
Russian
in turn number
Operation
4.
We've seen them ramp up the rate at which
Another
they've
car
been
down on the
targeting
inside of the
elections,
track
not
as
just in the United
well.
States, but around the
And
world.
our first yellow of the
And
race
there's every
comes
reason
out
to believe they'll continue
at
to do
lap
that.
number 47 of 200.
I think
Davison,
in
we
many
saw, was in a
ways,
whole
they're
lot of
just
trouble.
getting started.
And that trouble just became terminal to his race. Is that Takuma Sato down on the inside caught up in it?
Yes, it is.
All right, here's what happened.
It was just a question of time when that was going to happen. You can't be running that much slower than anybody else.
You know, I really don't understand that because he is so far off of pace that he's got to know that he is in the way. And the car wasn't right, and he came in for a pit stop. He went back out. At that speed, Eddie, that is so far off the pace. You need, if you had more experience, you'd be coming in the pit lane saying, change the car, fix the car. Watch from Takuma Sato.
That's such a pity and such a waste for both of them. All they should have done was called him in, tried to fix the car. If it was loose, do something, even if it takes 2 or 3 laps.
Big bunch up here. Watch Davidson. Inside.
Absolutely brilliant driving. How cold-blooded was that? He waited the whole time to see where they were going to go, and then right at the end, he made the right decision. But Sato had no place to go.
Now, you hang that one on the 33 with Davison because it just makes me mad that he stays out in the racetrack like that.
Yeah, but that's more from the pits should be calling him in. He's doing everything he can to keep, obviously, a loose car on the track, but you could tell where he was getting past. He was getting past between 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. In all the years I've raced here, I've maybe had to pass 2 cars in 15 years.
Well, maybe hoping for a caution to get a chance to make some adjustments on that car without losing so much time, but unfortunately the caution was him. And so the first yellow of the race is out for James Davison and Takuma Sato, whose races end in a crash in turns 3 and 4. Pit road is closed while they pick up some of the debris and where the cars have come to rest on the racetrack. Now the pits will be open as they have a clear enough scene. We'll see if people come back down the pit lane now. I expect they will.
Hi, I'm Joe Weisenthal.
And I'm
In
Tracy
about 20
Alloway.
laps
And we're
since
from
the
the
beginning
Outlaws
of the
podcast,
round
and
of
you
green
are
flag
watching
pit
Bloomberg
stops,
Originals.
and about 15 since most of the leaders came down the pit
These
road.
videos are all over.
And another update on the engine competition.
Gets you a
The
top,
top
I promise
7
you are not ready.
On
are
YouTube,
Chevys.
Instagram, and TikTok, American car influencers
Hondas.
are hawking
Two
Chinese car
manufacturers in the series last year. Honda with a decided leg up on Chevrolet in steam under the engine cover. This year Chevrolet came back and said,
state-of-the-art tech.
we found something.
Almost on.
I think
And
they
most
said
importantly,
no
low
more of that.
prices.
And when they came back, they happened.
But inflation
just a
weary
little bit.
Americans watching these videos
you and
can't
raise
afford
you.
the car.
Yeah. and do not think that Honda's just going to
Let's
sit
go
around
back.
and accept that
For
they'll do a
decades,
little more, and then the other one will do a little more.
That's what competition is about, right?
That's what the Indianapolis 500
Then China decided to get into the car business. The Chinese government forced Western automakers or non-Chinese
AMR safety
automakers
team
to
out picking
form
up all
joint
the
ventures
pieces.
with state-owned Chinese
You see
companies.
they work to remove the
At
two
first,
cars,
they
so
weren't
here
very
they
good
come
at it
to the
'cause they were still
opening
new.
of the pit
At some
lane.
point, Chinese automakers realized
And
they were never going to
Carpenter
beat
will
them
head
at
left.
gas cars, so they decided to play a different game.
As will the other lead
the
lap cars
Chinese
for the most
government
part.
created a national goal to develop electric vehicle technology.
Yellow flag stops sometimes lead to contact on pit road. This pit lane is very narrow. When you get a lot of cars in there at the same time, watch the pit exits.
And a lot of Chinese
See if somebody's race gets ruined
answered
there.
that
Rick?
call, like BYD.
Well, Tony
started out
Kanaan
as
bringing
a
the car
battery
down.
company
One of
and
the
then got into
discussions before he
automotive.
got
We
here
also
was
have
whether to
Geely,
do a
who
wing
are the founder
adjustment.
of
He said
Geely,
there's
started
understeer in the
making
car.
parts for
At first they said yes, then they
Xiaomi,
decided
they're
not to do a
cell
wing
phone
adjustment
company
because they
that
want to
has
get him
now
out as
gotten into
quickly as
cars because
possible.
cars
Doc?
are becoming really software driven.
Understeer for both Joseph Newgard and Ed Carpenter said it wasn't too bad. Carpenter said only in turn 3 where I'm having an issue. The critical part is to beat everyone off the road, and that's exactly what the 20 car has done.
That's the advantage of being the last exit, isn't it? He only had like 10 feet to go before he crossed that line, and it was close.
On the race off pit road, Carpenter holding the lead. Good stop and by Will Power's crew to try and gain some of the track position they lost in that last cycle of the race.
From China, jumping to 6.
Trouble in turns 3 and 4 brings out the first yellow of the Indianapolis 500.
Back at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, we're under caution for the first time. Zachary Clayman DeMello out front under alternate pit strategy. We have been granted incredible access up at the top of the pagoda. No one gets to come here. In fact, there are only about 6 other people up here right now. I should tell you, 2 of them happen to be members of the team Penske higher-ups, Bud Denker and Jonathan Gibson. But this gives you an idea of the scope of the speedway. You can see the snake pit over there, that gigantic stage. There is a concert taking place in the snake pit in the middle of this race. You can see the golf course, the Brickyard Crossing golf course. There are full holes located inside. Turn 2, the Indianapolis skyline over there. You can see Turn 2. In fact, this is one of the only places in the entire track where you can be and see all 4 corners of the speedway. Incredible access. We'll continue to show that, and we'll continue to show you the live action from the speedway under caution for the first time. We'll be back. The 102nd running of the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. When we come back, here's what happened between Davis and Sato. We'll be back in a few.
So the new leader of the race is Zach Clayman DeMello, the rookie from Montreal, whose team did not pit under this yellow. Rick?
Well, that's exactly right. I was talking with the strategist, Michael Cannon. I said, why didn't you bring him in? He said, well, first off, we really didn't have to come in. Second off, my goal is to get him up front. He believes that it's so hard to pass. He said he needs him up front. And he said, my theory is I get him up front, and then I figure out how to keep him out front later on.
Volkswagen is losing share.
It's kind of hard to do when you're running out of fuel.
Just his 6th IndyCar
like
start and his first start in the 500.
Viewers in the
Ed
U.S. on
Carpenter
social
right
media
behind
are
him.
also seeing them more. Last December, YouTuber Marquez
Elio
Brownlee
Castroneves
posted
back
a
in
review of
9th,
the
Doc.
Xiaomi SU7.
Bit of an
and
issue here
he was
for one
really
of the
impressed
favorites,
with it.
Elio
There's basically no
Castroneves.
question in my mind that
As you
if
see what they're
a
trying
car
to do
like
here,
this
they're going to change
was
the
available
fuel
in the
hoses.
US for
Elio came in,
$42,000,
and the car
then
would
it
not
would
accept
crush.
fuel. They
The
weren't
review
sure if there was
went
something wrong with the
viral
drive
with
brake
over
in the
10
car.
million
Now they
views.
determined
It
they
really
think it's
woke
the fueling
Americans up
system
to
here,
just how
and
sophisticated
there's an issue
Chinese
with the
cars have
nozzle. So
become.
they have talked it over with Roger. Roger told me that they waited long enough to get it full of fuel, but they're going to change the hose.
All right, Doc, thanks. Green flag. Here we go. Here's Carpenter inside. Kanaan looking outside of Clayman DeMello in turn 1.
That's the perfect move for Ed Carpenter, putting a distance
China
between
is
him
not playing fair,
and
that they're
everybody
getting
else.
support from the government. But one thing I noticed on TikTok is that there's a really different narrative there.
There
What you
goes Tony
see is
Kanaan
that
to the
story is
inside.
more it's the
Remember,
US
everybody's
who's
on
being
fresh
unfair
tires, so the tires have a lot more grip with those Firestones.
Lurking on
Clayman
Red
DeMello
Note, I
used
found out
tires,
about
and he's going to get
this
past
car.
very
We
often here
can't
very
see this
quickly.
It's going to be touchy for the drivers to work their way around it.
Cars. Not only are they so
have to
impressed
be
with their
patient here.
technology and the price, they're also really mad because cars have become really unaffordable.
Boy, they
in the
sure are
States.
using up all
the
of the road
average new
coming
car
out of 2
price in the U.S.
and 3
is around
and 4.
$50,000.
Here comes
That's just
Joseph
out of
Newgard.
reach for more and more people, especially
He'll
now.
get through.
Inflation,
He had to
high
muscle
interest
his way through. You see the car starting to move around just a little bit.
Everyone
That
talks about
disturbed
how
air.
quickly
Even
China
beside
is moving.
some
They can
battling now.
design,
Ryan Hunter
develop,
Ray
produce
going
new car in
past the
18
PNC
months
machine.
versus
Scott
3 to 5
Dixon.
years
We're
for
on board with
Western
Scott
car
right
companies.
now.
And that brings brings up questions of quality and reliability.
Here's
but
Simon
the truth is we
Pagenaud
don't know
hopping
yet
out of
because
line.
EVs are still a relatively
He'll
new
get by,
technology.
claiming DeMello.
Even though there may be some questions in consumers' minds, that doesn't mean that the legacy automakers
Couple
aren't
things
looking
here.
to China to learn how to make cars.
This
like
comes
they
back to the urgency
What
on
you're seeing right
starts and
now is actually
restarts
a
that
lot of
people
big
talked about, right?
European
Get what you
automakers
can while the
engaged in
field
this
is bunched up,
technology
because
very
once it
quickly.
spreads
US
out, it's going to be
companies have
harder
been
to
tested,
get a
and it's been very
draft. Look at
difficult for
that
them to do
Piggott
the same. So it's a
moving to the
really
inside of the
difficult balance to
21.
get
Hunter
right.
Ray has to
I think
back
the
off, trying to find a way
future
around
of
him.
the US
It's going to be
automotive
harder to
industry
get
really
those
hinges on
spots
the question
once the
of
cars spread
whether
out
or
in
not
line.
there's
So
going
when
to be
everything
more
is still
openness to Chinese
bunched up and
technology,
people have
might
to
be
check
more
up for other
openness to
cars,
maybe licensing
get all
some
you
Chinese
can. That's
technologies.
a
These
level
kinds
of
of
aggression that's
arrangements,
only
if
going
done
to grow the
carefully,
later in
could
the
be a
race we
real
get.
boom for the US
But
industry.
Alan, the
It could
level
allow for
of
more
danger.
Caution,
innovation.
trouble, Ed Jones.
Even though the U.S. has been successful
Off of
so
turn
far
2.
in keeping Chinese cars physically out of the country, they can't control what people see or what people think. The Chinese cars are
Last
very
year,
hard to resist for
such a
a lot of people,
spectacular
and I think
performance
that puts pressure
as
not
a
just
500
on
rookie,
U.S. politicians,
qualified
but
11th,
also the
finished
rest of the
third.
auto industry to
Said this
have
year,
more affordable cars that are
everyone's
as
been
good as the
chasing a
Chinese,
feeling
or
that
else
just
people are
doesn't exist
eventually
in
gonna
this
vote
car,
with their
myself included.
wallets.
That's not the feeling you wanted.
I was just finishing, I was trying to finish a sentence before that accident happened, saying the level of danger trying to get past cars in those first 2 laps or first 4 or 5 corners is way higher.
Just wanted to say,
It's just a battle
Primer
one-on-one
is
with somebody else.
We've been
There's so many
scouring the
things that can go
frontiers of
wrong. Now I'm
science and
looking
technology
forward
to help
see what
explain the
happens,
difference
because
between the
tires
next
are
gold rush and whatever this thing
not
is.
the outside.
And in season 2, we're upping the stakes. More
Jones
danger.
out of his car,
That
walked
is
away.
high-grade uranium
To
mineralization.
the top of the screen.
Wow.
have a stable
That's
climate
just
on this
loose.
earth.
It's gone
Right
by
now,
middle
we
of the
do
turn.
not.
He's not around anybody.
Science.
When the back end comes around like that, it's called oversteer. So we're not sure if something broke or if the car was just loose going in to create that oversteer.
Like, very cold.
Now on board, let's
More
ride along and
CEOs that
listen.
can nail the photo shoot.
Hundreds and hundreds of billions of dollars
Wow.
are at stake.
While the problems
I'm
are
starting to wonder, guys, if maybe something didn't break there because it was just a
And
very
yes,
quick
we
little
will be
movement
talking
in the
about
car.
AI.
Cars that are very loose race car, and that's when the back end wants to come
But
around,
our
like I
future
mentioned.
doesn't run on hype.
You become a passenger Eddie at that
Runs on
point in time
innovation.
and very early in the race.
Watch
Very
season 2
disappointing.
on
It was at a
all
lot
these
of
lovely
dirty air,
channels.
very low on the track when that happened.
Was running in 24th position at the time, and so the yellow flag out for a second time in this race. And this is what we talked about: drivers being aggressive, leading to more yellows, leading to more aggression as people try and take advantage of the passing opportunities under today's extremely hot conditions in the Indy 500. 150 miles into this Indianapolis 500-mile race, couple of incidents. Takuma Sato and James Davison involved in the first one.
James Davison having difficulty with his car off pace. Probably should have thought about coming into pit lane to get the car back up to speed. Takuma Sato coming through the turn, nowhere to go, runs over the back of him, and this could have been a lot worse.
And so Sato's day is done. A few laps after the restart, Ed Jones, trouble in turn 2, put us under caution once again after just 3 laps of racing.
And he just lost control of the car. We don't know if something broke or it was dirty air, but it was just there 1 second and sideways the next.
And let's check in with Jan, who has Takuma Sato.
Well, the good news is that Takuma Sato has been released from the medical center. You're okay, but that looked like a scary moment with a slow car Davison ahead of you.
Yeah, I mean, looked like too much cruising speed, and by the time I realized I obviously back off everything, I even hit the brake. Just once you get an air pocket like that, it's just suck into it, and really unfortunate situation for both of us, and I really feel sorry for the team and the fans and all the supporters.
I know James feels very bad about it as well, but did you get any warning at all from your spotter that you were closing so fast?
Well, Robert and I were catching on the train in front in the pack, and once he got it, I could see obviously 2 cars in side by side, but by the time maybe James had too much in trouble and he had to back off and on the grey and get into the corner, I think speed differential is way too great, and I tried to avoid everything. Unfortunately, I couldn't avoid it.
Tough day for last year's winner. Thanks.
All right, Jan, thank you. So a look at some numbers from the race so far today. And 5 lead changes and 2 cautions. Again, the car is different this year. Last year, the car punched such a big hole in the air. The draft and the slingshot was everything. The car this year has less of a hole in the air that it punches, and so it's kind of a throwback. The car's look itself is a bit of a throwback, and the way these drivers are having to advance on the track, a bit of a throwback also.
You have to add one thing to that, and you're right about the draft. The other difference is they've taken a lot of downforce out of the car, so it's very hard. You're unstable when you're behind a car that's in front of you in the middle of a corner. It just doesn't handle as well as it did before, so the drivers don't have that downforce to rely on. We've almost gone back to the 90s or earlier, maybe even the mid-80s. There was a time when getting around this circuit without taking your foot off the throttle was almost impossible.
Green flag is out. Tony Kanaan chasing the leader, Ed Carpenter, with a big run.
This is Wall Street Week. I'm David Weston, bringing you stories of capitalism. China
And the crowd erupts anytime Tony Kanaan takes the lead.
We go to Paris to see how
Anytime one of Foyt's cars takes the lead.
to take over Europe. Plus, the IMF and World Bank met in Washington last
So
week.
this is the first hard exam that Ed Carpenter's going to have to deal with. We'll see how he deals with Kanaan.
And it's not just the
Ray and
people you see
Piggott.
on the news all the time.
Ray backs
that
off.
person next door may be one of the
Didn't quite have the position alongside. That's Sebastian Bourdais picking up a spot on Charlie Kimball, a little deeper in line. Bourdais 18, Kimball 23. Robert Wickens right behind them in the 6. Up front, Carpenter for the lead.
Clear.
I applaud Secretary Dussett for doing that.
Ed Carpenter, hometown boy, against Tony Kanaan.
That didn't last very long.
Driver.
The risk for any kind of
Okay, so you got the jump on me on the restart. I'll show you who's got the horse today.
In the banking system. So much of it rests on our banking system, so nothing is more important.
We need to do something about it. I don't think there is a framework.
Really intense. Look at this.
Keen to have a framework that
wow.
needs to operate.
That's
I don't think there is
That's
a
225 miles an hour.
I'm just wondering if Dixon's tire might have got sliced by the wing.
Catherine Judge is a professor at Columbia
And
Law
he's
School.
down by the grass. Haven't seen that since Ryan Hunter was making them looking on the high side.
And what regulators
Man,
can
I'm glad
do
I'm
to
in the
manage
booth today.
them.
The big deal is there are real concerns that this new,
Kanaan
much
is
more
hanging with
sophisticated
him.
form of AI
Think about
could
Scott
detect
Dixon,
and likely will
what he
detect
went through in
very
this race a
meaningful
year ago.
vulnerabilities
And there he
in
is,
banks
laying it all
software
out there
in
again.
ways that
Why?
could expose them to cyber
win the
attacks that
Indianapolis
would disable
500.
individual banks and potentially the broader banking system.
Dixon running at 11th, Ed Carpenter running in first. Doc?
Is there a flip side to
Remember,
it
we
also?
told you Ed
There may
Carpenter was
give
trying to
the
save
banking
fuel, and now
system and
Ford
banks
Fuel is
some
today. They told
defensive
him
tools
prior to the
others might
restart,
lack.
go to a
Yeah,
certain
and this is
fuel
always the
setting,
interesting
which is
questions
not
like
full
AI
rich.
fighting AI.
He
and
thought
what
they
that
could
looks
save
like.
fuel
And there's also a
and hold
question
on
of
to
what
the
that looks
lead
like
while
for the
Tony
structure
Kanaan
of
proved
the
that that was
banking
not the
system.
case.
Again,
So they went back to
the
where they
US
were
has
running,
always had
and now the
a very
result is
loose
Carpenter
banking
goes
system.
sailing
We have
back by.
lots of small
So that
banks, we
fuel-saving
have regional
experiment on the
banks, and they
restart,
provide
you
different
checked that
types
one
of
off the list.
services and
It didn't
loans to the
work.
real economy. And so one
But
of the
I got to
interesting
tell you what
questions
Kanaan is
becomes
doing. He's
absolutely
the
vital
only one that's
to be
managed
part
to
of the
stay
financial
that
system.
close to
Who's
Carpenter.
going
And if
to
he
have
can do
access
that,
to that type
he
of
will run at
technology?
Carpenter's speed, but he'll use a lot less fuel. And if he does that for enough laps, that will be a
Not
big
at
advantage.
all. And we've seen both European and Asian regulators speak out
There's our
and voice
Firestone
significant
telemetry.
concerns.
Watch the number on
And
the
so one
mile
of
per
the things
hour
that's
down
so
the straightaway
interesting
into the
about
corner
this
for
is you
Kanaan and
both
see how much he
need
lifts.
Clear public-private coordination, but there's also the possibility of global coordination to try to understand just what these
He
threats
lifted a lot,
are,
but he's still
and then
right
what can
there.
be done
And you know, Eddie, that
realistically
when
to
you
try
get
to
back
contain
on
it.
it as aggressively as he did right there,
They have
you
an
have
awful lot of
confidence in the
PhD
car.
economists. I'm not
You're
aware
not
they have a lot of
tentative with
AI
it.
in
That's a good sign.
Yeah,
Yes, he
and
got
one
off
of
the
the real
throttle,
challenges.
but it's the best that
no
we've seen
bank
so far
supervisor is
today.
prepared for this, right? So cyber attacks are nothing new. It's a
Just a
challenge.
little 230-mile-an-hour Sunday drive into the corner.
And
Trouble.
supervisors have
Danica
played a
Patrick.
role, helping to make sure the banks are appropriately prepared as part of operational risk and other concerns. But this is a whole different level. It's jumping up the magnitude of the threat in a way
And that will
no
be
bank
how
regulator
her
or
driving
supervisor
career at
is
Indianapolis
prepared to fully
ends.
address. And so the question is, can they ask good questions? Can they help provide guidance? As they did in Washington, can they facilitate coordination and conversation?
We turn to the Fed right now to avoid the problem. But if, heaven forbid, there is a problem, there is a serious hack, what could the Fed's role be in remediation?
This is one of the key issues. I mean, the government's not going to be able
Safety
to
team
stop
there. Patrick
a
beginning to climb
serious
from the
cyber
car.
attack On the other hand, the government can play a very meaningful role helping to contain the damage. And really, when you're worried about the functioning financial system, a lot of it's on prevention, but things are going to happen and things are going to wrong, and the effort then is on containment. And that's where the Fed having strong relationships with the entire banking system and helping to make sure that it's providing liquidity and potentially helping to provide alternatives for affected consumers and really coming up with a game plan over, well, what can we do and what should we do if things go wrong.
Very similar to Ed Jones.
The effort going forward.
In the middle of the turn, the back end starts to come around. I thought that she was dealing with a car that was very neutral. Too positive on the front when we watched her earlier in the race. That means it was very difficult to turn into the turn
Like the
because
rest
the back
of us,
end
the
wants
Fed
to
may
swap
be
ends.
struggling to understand
Not sure
the
if that's
benefits
the case
and
there,
risks
but
of
looks
AI.
very similar, as
So
you
we
mentioned,
turn
Eddie,
to the
to Ed
experts,
Jones.
people like Margaret Mitchell, researcher and chief ethics scientist at Hugging Face, an open source AI platform.
Mythos is really on
Oh,
the
that's
cutting
just a
edge
loose
of
car.
cybersecurity
Back
right
end just
now.
got away from it.
It's incorporating a lot
And
of
there's
things
nothing
that
you
we've
can do
already
once it
known,
goes. You
that's
cannot
already
catch it
common
in
in
time.
cybersecurity.
Look how she
but
puts her
it's
hands
within a
down.
system also called Mythos.
Running in
that can
17th
operate
at the
at
time.
warp speed.
Another look from Alexander
So
Rossi's on
there's
board.
this new sort of paradigm right now within AI called AI agents and agentic computing. Mythos is an autonomous agentic system. It can take
That was
sequences
Alexander
of actions
Rossi's
without
spotter
any
telling
human
him good
oversight.
job, because he
and it
missed
can do
the
it,
accident.
while you're asleep
Rev
and
Patrick.
infiltrate tons of different systems.
Not what they
If
were
I'm
hoping
one of the
for
big
today.
banks,
But what a career.
the Secretary of Treasury Bassett called in.
Well, she had a very lengthy
conversation
conversation with her crew during that last yellow. They were talking about the car and how it was doing. And one of the things she
Right.
talked
I
about
think
was the fact that it got more
knowledge,
unstable
and that
as they went
expertise
into the
is
run.
really
Now, she was
important
talking
here.
about
You don't
understeer initially,
necessarily
but they
need
were saying that she was
Mythos
saying to the
build
team
up
that it was
appropriate
just
defenses.
not doing what she
And
wanted
actually, this
as
is
the
where
run got
open source
longer.
world can
And
really
you can
help
see in this
because
point,
it's
it
quite
did not
possible,
work
or at
for
least
her.
we sort of think it's possible within the world
When
of
asked
AI
why she
to
came
have
here to
different
finish her
models
career at
swapped
Indianapolis,
in a
Danica
similar
said that this
system
was
built with
this
deep
was the
security
place.
expertise
This
to
was the
help
place
with
that
probing for
that made her
vulnerabilities
relevant.
and creating patches,
And
that
she
kind
said
of thing.
the
And so I
hesitation
think
was
it's
she didn't
really
want to ever
important
take
right now
anything
for people to
away from what she's
recognize,
accomplished
A,
here,
that
but she
this
did it because she had
technology is
time to do it
possible,
right.
and that doesn't
She was
have
with a
to
good
be,
team with a good program.
siloed
You
to
saw
any
that through
one
qualifying,
company. And
but
B,
this is
that
not
you
the
can
way that
build up
she would have wanted
defenses right
the day to
now
end.
using
So
tools that
Danica
are
Patrick
already
riding through the
available
medical
for
center
intruder detection,
after crashing while
fuzzing
running
frameworks, these
17th,
kinds of things,
shy
where
of 200 miles
basically
of this
it's
Indianapolis
possible
500-mile
to
race.
preempt any sort of attackers
Today's
and
result does not take
defensively
anything
set
away from
up,
everything that she
safeguards
managed to do
against
in a
any,
race car.
malicious
So you lead my
Part
next
of
question, which is
cybersecurity
legacy
defense
as a race driver.
is basically having your own organization or other organizations try to hack
Not
into
many
you
takers
to see
at
where
the
there might be
front of the
vulnerabilities.
field.
So
Just,
that's been going on
Joseph
for some time
Newgarden,
at the banks.
third,
But is this
Claiming
different
DeMello,
in the sense
Wiggins,
that it can be running in
most
the
of the front
background
runners stayed
constantly?
on the
The
racetrack.
punchline
Pick that up.
is that
I'm sure we'll hear from
Mythos
Danica
is
after a bit. First
operating
under caution.
in a way
Third
where
time
human
in the Indianapolis
oversight can be
500.
difficult.
We're back after a word
And
from your
that's
ABC
because
station.
it can create
The snake bit
action
at the
sequences
Indianapolis Motor
without
Speedway
any sort of
during the
human
102nd
intervention
Indianapolis
and
500-mile race. Our telecast
different kinds
presented
of
by
things that it
Firestone. A
sees
rash
possible,
of crashes.
and it can do it
Three
very fast,
in
and it
20
can
laps
spawn
of
what are
racing
called
have
sub-agents.
put us
So
under the
little
yellow flag
workers
for a
that can do the
third
same
time
thing
in this
across
race.
distributed systems.
First, James Davison having
so it's
problems,
sort of
and
new
Takuma
paradigm
Sato
of
could not
agentic
avoid.
computing.
That was at lap
So,
48.
it's really within this
We saw this one coming 3 or 4 laps
autonomy
earlier.
that I
Stop
think
because
we
he
have
was
to
just
think
going too
critically
slow, and
about
sooner or later
what we
somebody
want
was
these
going to run
systems
into
to
the
be
back.
doing, where we want to bring
Both
in
cars
human
out of the race.
oversight,
Then 10
how-
laps later at
how
lap
people should
58,
be
Ed
able
Jones
to
found
interact
trouble in
with
turn
these
2.
systems in
Right
order
to the middle of the
improve
turn, the
their
back end
driving,
comes around. That's
because
what we call a
otherwise,
loose race car
full
or
autonomy,
oversteer,
they can
almost
just
like you're
keep
sliding
going
on ice.
overnight while you're sleeping,
And the result was
spinning,
going into the wall,
spinning
and
tons
then
of different systems, that sort of thing.
he now
So, you have to put in place those
Has a
guardrails,
beaten up race
those
car and is out of the
checks in
race.
order to
Then
make
Danica
sure
Patrick
that
at
humans
lap
are in the
68.
loop and
Now, this
can
is almost a
see into the
photocopy
loop, can really
of
understand
Ed
what's
Jones's
happening.
accident. I don't want to put the finger on something and say it's one reason or another, but these new cars have a lot less downforce.
Which is
And
better
when
if the
maybe when
goal
you get
is
past
safety?
center on it and the car loses its
Semi-autonomous.
balance,
I've actually
it will
written papers on this and op-eds,
from
and
the track,
I'm
just
very
like those two
opinionated
did.
about
Ed
this
Jones
actually.
has been
So when you have
transported to
full
IU
autonomy,
Methodist
that's
Hospital
super
in Indianapolis,
flexible. You can do
complaining of a
lots
headache
different
and neck
things, and
pain.
so that's
Further
pretty
updates
cool. Lots
as
of different
they
things
become
you've never
available
thought
to
of
us. So we're
doing
half a lap away
pre-program
from
it,
the
right?
restart.
But
We've seen
from
trouble at both ends of the
a
racetrack
safety
now. Two of the
perspective,
incidents
also
in
within the
turn
context
two,
of the
one of the
financial
incidents
sector,
in
where
turns
there's
3 and
a lot of
4.
regulations at
Although
play
the
in
ones
terms
with the
of
cars
accountability, in terms of the
snapping around
passage
by
of data, that
themselves,
kind of thing.
both
You want to make
in
sure
turn number
that
2.
you're able to specify specifically
Joseph
the
Newgarden, one of the
context
few leaders to
within
come in
which
and
the
pit that
system
time,
can
and I asked Tim
run,
Cindric,
and that it
president of
can't jump
Penske
out of
Racing,
those
why you pitted
contexts.
off
If you're a
sequence. He said, well,
regulator,
2
what
rounds
do
of
you
front
do
wing
in the
to
face
help
of
the
this new
understeer. He
technology
said, but
to
we're
try
in
to
our pit window
minimize
now.
or
We can make it
prevent
on
systemic
3
risk?
more stops, so why not roll the dice and get off sequence a bit?
One
We've changed the
piece
front
to
end to make
play
it drive
within
better in
overall
traffic, and now we're in our
accountability
window with just
And
3
I
stops
think
left.
for
Newgarden gave up
regulation,
third
that
position. He'll
focuses more on
restart
trying to
20th here.
help,
Green flag
ensure
with
reliability,
Carpenter and
ensure
Kanaan again on a
safety,
restart.
Opening up the possibility of third-party audits, third-party testing. So there's
Really
something
have
to be
enough
said
momentum
for
to get around
companies that
Carpenter? Looks like he
share
does, although
their-
Ed had
their
the
code,
inside
their
line.
information, even if they're proprietary, in order
Will
to
Power
undergo
around Simon Pagenaud for
third-party
third.
auditing, third-party testing, that kind of thing. Regulators are in a really nice position to try and ensure that people's
Castro
rights are
Neves next in
protected.
line fourth.
So
And how about
what are the
Ryan
rights
Hunter
that should be
Ray
protected?
from
So this is where
14th
security
to
comes in,
5th, former winner
reliability,
of the
safety,
500.
That
privacy,
doesn't
those
shock me
kinds
at
of
all that
things.
he's found a
So
way
I
to
think
the front.
regulators have a role to play within the
I'll tell you
overall
what,
ecosystem in setting up what kinds of human values
Starting from the
should
front
be
position so
protected in
far,
these
you're a
systems,
sitting duck. If
and how
there's
can
5 or
you
6 laps
ensure
to go,
that
that's
your
not the
system
best
does
place to
that?
be.
Show us
That white car you
what
saw around the
run
outside, that's
evaluations,
Oriol
how to
Servia,
undergo
who was a
third-party
lap down,
evaluations,
took a
where we can
wave
actually
around
see
at the
from
second
someone
caution.
without the
Now there he
financial
is through some of the
incentives of one
strategy up in
institution,
10th place
how
and
well
climbing.
these systems
3
actually
wide,
work.
sorting out into turn 1.
Up next,
And
we look
rush hour
behind
traffic
the
at
curtain at Chinese
210 or
automaker
15 miles
BYD
an hour.
to see how it's come so far, so
Got
fast,
to get all
and
you
the
can
challenge
get
it
on these
poses for
restarts.
Western rivals.
These guys up to the grass, for goodness sake. Rossi 27, blue and yellow car. Also done a nice job working his way forward. Remember, he started on the last row. He started 32nd. Alexander Rossi running in 12th place right now.
And that's the kind of run that you would expect from him. A very methodical driver, very quiet in the car. Team will tell you that he's very smart, very intelligent, a student of this type of racing when he came over here from Formula One.
And he's the only driver this year to have dominated at a race. He qualified on pole in Long Beach and just drove away from everybody. I know this is not Long Beach, but that sort of confidence goes a long way to helping you at a long race like this one. Kanaan still's leading.
Yeah, after the last restart, when Kanaan got the jump on Ed Carpenter, Ed passed him right back a lap later. This time, Kanaan is eased away by some 5-7 car lengths. And so the former winner, Tony Kanaan, took the checkered flag first back in 2013 in a race where he had to be very aggressive to get to the front at the end.
Do you remember what he said at the end, the last pit stop? I am going. It was like Babe Ruth pointing to a certain part of the baseball field saying, that's where I'm going to hit it.
Yeah.
That was amazing. He is the master at restarts.
Tony in his 21st season of IndyCar and his 17th 500-mile race, Rick.
Yeah, let's talk about something that's very different today than the year he won the race. He was saying that the year he won the race, he made no adjustments in the car. They liked the car all the way through. He wasn't using the tools inside the cockpit. They weren't making wing adjustments. Totally different today. He's been using the tools inside. They've been making adjustments outside. It's not an easy run to the front for Tony Kanaan in this race, but he doesn't care as long as it gets him to the end at the front of this pack.
Yeah.
As this race gets longer and longer, there's another advantage that goes to Tony Kanaan, and he has an incredible physical condition. He's a triathlete, and I think the heat that we're supposed to see today, it's only 123 degrees right now.
On the track.
On the track. Well, that's the only bit that he's really interested in.
Yes. 88 degrees outside right now. Track temperature 123 degrees. And this place is so big, the track temperature is actually different from one end of the racetrack to the other. Where Kanaan is headed right now, turn 3, it's 130 degrees of track temperature. Turn 4 is 127. Down at the other end of the speedway, turn 1 at 119, turn 2 at 117. Angle of the sun, shadows from grandstands, things like that.
And cloud cover.
But it affects how your car performs and that magic level of grip you're seeking to try and go as fast as you can around the Brickyard. About to hit the 200-mile mark in the Indianapolis 500-mile race. Tony Kanaan
This is
out in front. There's your top 5.
Too big to ignore.
Tony Kanaan, the race leader of the Indianapolis 500. You ride with Joseph Newgarden, whose team just
countries
made a
like
little strategy
Japan,
play.
Germany, and the United States.
Download IndyCar Mobile and access exclusive live in-car cameras, your driver picture chatter, and more only on Verizon.
In the world, going from
Newgarden
6th
back
place
in
to
20th place.
1st.
Remember, he gave up
It now
third
exports more
at
vehicles
lap
than the
70
United
for a pit
States
stop,
and
with most
Japan
of those running at the
combined.
front of the pack
And
around
no
him did
company
not
tells that
stop.
story
Now
better
under
than
green.
electric car maker BYD.
In the next several laps, we're
Bloomberg's
going to
Tom
begin to see
McKenzie
some of those
reports
front
from
runners
Paris.
begin to filter onto the pit lane, barring another quick yellow.
At an opera house just north of the Champs-Elysees, a lavish debut.
Newgarden
For Paris.
check up there off of turn 2.
The
Rick?
star of the show, not a
Well, if you're looking for the
performer, but a
unfair
product.
advantage in
This
the
car
Penske
is the
team,
latest
it's all the
creation
little
of
things. For
BYD.
example, check this out. It's a
Shenzhen-based
portable
electric
air
vehicle
conditioner
maker
they have here in the
that's
pit.
taken the world
It
by
actually sucks
storm.
in the air here,
Today,
blows
it's
cold air
China's
out here.
biggest
So
car
if the
company
crews are
by
feeling
sales.
overheated, they can come put their face in this, put their hand in this, maybe put their uniform up to cool themselves down because it's so hot out here on pit lane. Remember, this may be one of the hottest 500s ever. That if you need to cool down, the Penske teams have that little extra advantage that other teams don't have.
And you just happen to coincidentally find it and stand there and be reporting on that car at the moment. Very good. Smooth move there, real smooth.
Yeah, both Al and I looked up, and the Firestone information is giving us an ambient temperature of 92, track temperature of 124, and he talks about the crews. The crews feel the heat just like the drivers, is reported, and they are so important, Eddie, simply for the fact that they cannot make a mistake putting on a wheel or filling up with fuel. It certainly costs them the race.
Claiming the title of top electric vehicle maker.
Tony Kanaan has a 1.5-second lead on Ed Carpenter. Will Power runs third. Simon Pagenaud fourth. Elio Castroneves is
Fisher is
fifth.
the electric vehicle and charging analyst at Bloomberg NEF.
So these front runners like Kanaan last pitted at lap 50. 30 and change lap fuel window, except they also have laps of caution because of those two crashes since they stopped. So they stretch that out a little more and begin to readjust the window. But look at the gap this front six is put from 7th place on back.
Oh yeah, we're kind of scared.
Have you noticed that none of them are stock nose gearbox?
The Chinese auto
There's a big
sector
gap
broadly
between
are
every
being
car.
taken now.
There's Hunter Ray,
Just listen
and
to Ford
there,
CEO Jim
all the way
Farley
back,
speaking last
is
year.
Marco Andretti, and then Spencer Pigot from 8th place on back.
Of their vehicles
Really separated the field after this last restart.
We wanted to get a first-hand look at the battle for the future of automaking. So
and
we
to
went
your
to
point,
Paris
most of the
to see
passing
the
has
rollout
happened
of
right after the
BYD's new
restart.
car. There, we spoke with the woman on the front lines of the firm's
Just at the
global
time of the race where I was
expansion.
making sure I was giving information back to the team. We talked about the ambient temperature now being the hottest at 92, track temperature starting to increase. Give the information back to the team of how your car is working, how it's handling, working and changing the tools inside the car, getting your car working better is so important. As Tony Kanaan works his way around Jay Howard.
Battery startup
Jay Howard down a lap. Riding on board with Jay. Jay does so much for young racers up and coming, runs the most successful Formula 4 team in the country right now, leading the championship, works with karting kids, and he is certainly looking in his mirrors right now as the Penske cars are starting to swallow
Why
him
did
up.
he slow down between 3 and 4? You own that corner. Don't lift up like that. Let him pass you on the exit of 4, not between those two corners.
You're the ones that have driven race cars. Zach Kanaan pulling over to signal he's going to pit. That's what the drivers have been instructed to do. To signal the other drivers. Wow. That was dicey. To swerve
And it's not over.
backstretch.
It's not over.
In the mobile phone space. An IPO followed, then a major investment from Berkshire Hathaway. With each step, the company grew and doubled down on
Here
research
is
and
Kanaan.
development,
Indeed,
bringing
from the lead.
suppliers under their own roof.
TK, you want that half a turn? The biggest structural advantage is that BYD has over its competitors.
Wide open, you
Two
can see it.
things. One is technology.
That was very emphatic. No, I don't want that half turn.
127 R&D engineer. We invented 52 patents per day.
Which is interesting when you think about it. A lot of teams have been making greater turns. I just heard another team talking about one more turn they're going to make. The critical thing here for these guys is to get these pit stops just right. When we're under green flag conditions, they need to make sure that they time this as well as possible, get them back out. And there, look at that, a 7-second pit stop. That is blindingly fast.
I think that pit crew's pumped up about that 14 car being up front, having a chance to win.
You could say it. That Ford
Pit on his
pit
left,
crew.
pit on this lap.
They have had their difficulties consistently performing in the last couple of years. But this couple of weeks here at Indianapolis on the Oval, they have been consistently fast.
Sadly,
Like most
BYD
teams, struggled
let us
to
race their
solve
hypercar to
the
the
riddle
Arc
of the new
Triumph,
car and what the
but
data
they did
meant
drive their latest
compared to what the
luxury
driver
EV,
was
the
feeling.
Denza
But they are
Z9
pumped up
GT.
and know they have a chance to win this race.
And they're 100% behind Kanaan. And you can tell.
So now Ed Carpenter, the leader, after the Kanaan stop. Expect we'll see Carpenter in very soon, if not here.
Given the company's origins, it's
And
no
indeed, here he
surprise that
comes.
the car maker's key feature
That
might
white
be its
line you see
battery.
is not what they call
Range
an
is long,
officiable
and the
line. It's
charge
okay
is
to cross that
fast,
line
far
to
faster
the
than
point
anything else
that
on
you
the
reach the
market,
commit line
if
to come
done
onto
through
pit
their
road.
planned system of flash charges. Fisher says it remains
So
to be
Carpenter
seen how
here from the
quickly
lead, putting
BYD
Will
can
Power
roll
out
those
front.
charges out, and whether their new cars will beat the competition in the field.
And you heard Ed Carpenter when they asked him, what do you want? He said, maybe a little more, but it is what it is. Meaning the understeer, especially the nose of the car, feeling light in turn 3. Okay in 1 and 2, but light in turn 3. Making a slight air pressure adjustment. Going to put more power. Got to get it full of fuel. Fuel very important right now. Holding it, no wing change either way.
Marco is ready also on the pit lane. Already has finished his stop, and he will follow Carpenter back onto the racetrack. So Will Power, the race leader. Here's Carpenter coming out with Kanaan. Kanaan's going to zoom by him off turn number 2 for once the field cycles through the stops.
I think from that report right there, from what Ed Carpenter said, it's probably the first time that his car has not been perfect because he says it is what it
cars
is.
now account for 1 in every 10 new vehicles sold. Goes for
Yeah, Simon Pagino, relatively happy with the car, but they are going to make a quick wing adjustment, get the fuel in, and send it back out at 7.4 seconds. Remember Mateus Lace, we haven't talked about him an awful lot today. He is a rookie in this race. He is the teammate also of Tony Kanaan. When they qualified, in fact, he qualified right next to Tony Kanaan. He's been relatively happy with the car all day. Really, this has been a big learning experience for him. They've been trying to talk him through this. Nice clean stop. Once again, just 7.5 seconds.
Now off turn 4, Power, Castro Neves, and Hunter Ray. The top 3 on the track in the cycle of stops will hit pit road for their service.
Altavia came to BYD after a career as an executive with the
Yeah, Will
competition.
Power has been sitting up at the front, not able to really do everything he wants. But you see, no wing adjustment. They send him back out with a nice clean stop.
Elio Castroneves said they asked if he wanted a front wing. He said, let's just go with air. Let's save that wing. Elio said, I'm worried about running out of adjustments. Let's make it with air this time and save the wing for later.
Spencer Piggott to his pit lane, Doc.
Spencer Piggott probably has had the best car since Carb Day he's had all month long. Had a little bit of an issue with the GCU, meaning the gearbox control unit. Had to shut the car off and refire during the yellow, but thus far he said the car really handling pretty well, other than just a slight understeer. Watch out for Piggott. Good fuel mileage, good handling car, and a young, aggressive driver.
Yeah, Doc, watch out for him to come back to see you in just a minute. Pit road speeding penalty will bring the 21 in for a pass-through penalty. Here's Scott Dixon from the lead, along with Alexander Rossi.
Are you on track to lead that?
And keep an eye on Dixon. They said his drink tube is not working. They may have to give him water. How about a driver sitting in this heat, not being able to drink? Now, the tires are needed, and obviously air pressure for a little bit of understeer. We're going to watch and see if they can service the driver or not. Dixon said, I may be okay. He added a little bit of water inside the air bottle. He's away. No other adjustment.
That's one of the worst things that could happen to a driver today. Not involving a crash is for that water system to not be working inside the race car.
Absolutely. Largest market.
Where your training comes in.
Exactly, for those drivers, because he trains so much. Scott Dixon, with the best outfit in town, pit fit, he works harder than probably anybody else. The trainers over there will tell you. But the water bottle system, as we watched 64 with Serbian pit road, fuel tires, putting some new fresh Firestones, fuel in.
He had cycled up to the lead. Remember, I said he was a lap down earlier, took a wave around on the lap 50 caution, and the next caution allowed him to catch back up to the field and get back in sync.
Competing with an EV car.
Danica Patrick has come from the medical center and is with Yarn.
Has just walked to my position here. Very emotional. First of all, Danica, are you okay?
The second generation.
Happened in turn number 2. It looked very similar to what happened to Ed Jones just a few laps prior.
I think we'll keep our competition.
Yeah, the first thing I said was I'm not sure really what happened. So it just seemed to come around and seemed pretty late off the corner. So I don't know. They said they looked back at the data and it was kind of like a little lift in the middle. It was a little bit of understeer and then back to it and it just swung. So yeah, you know, I mean, today was really disappointing for what we were hoping for. And
especially in BYD's
I'm grateful
case.
for all of it. So
How much of BYD's success
wish I could have finished
is down
stronger.
to Chinese
Are all the emotions you're dealing with
government support over the
specific
years?
here to Indy, knowing that how much of a difference that made in your career, or now that you're looking at an entire career that's wrapped up?
Yeah, it's an entire career. I mean, but you know what really launched it was this. So it's both of them. You know, I've had a lot of good fortune here, and did still have some this month. Just didn't come on race day, but we had some good moments.
You definitely did. Thank you, Danica.
Some of this was about obviously not the way she wanted to finish. Tony Kanaan back on pit lane so soon, Rick.
So I don't look at the Chinese.
Apparently he has a puncture in the right rear, and this is really going to put a major dent in his effort to win this Indianapolis 500. Not sure what caused it. There's the opportunity for debris. Sometimes you get close to something. Doesn't really matter. Bottom line is he's forced to come in, do another pit stop.
Outside of China,
That is going to put a major dent in his ability to win this race.
China
He was up front.
shifting excess capacity to other markets.
The thing they have to focus on is that we're just coming up to the halfway mark of the race, so they have time to try and catch one of those wave arounds or get cycled back on the lead lap and try and see what they can make happen. In the cycle of pit stops, Graham Rahal is currently the leader. He started back in 30th place, last pitted 30 laps ago. We should see him on the pit lane fairly soon. So Danica Patrick's driving career is done.
So far,
Said she wanted to be remembered
consumers haven't
as a
gotten
great
their
race
hands on
driver.
China's latest EVs.
I think it's fair to say she showed us she was.
100% have kept BYD and others out of the US car market. But Donald Trump and
Anxious
China's Xi
moments for
Jinping
Zach
set to
Veach
meet
in the
May,
pit stop
and
that you
those
saw in
trade
our
barriers
ABC
are likely
side-by-side
high on
coverage.
the
It appears
agenda.
that those
US
flames
car
that were
makers
trailing
might not have
from
long
where the
before
fuel
Chinese
coupling
cars show up on American
disconnects
shores.
have extinguished
Something that
themselves.
Ford's Jim
For whatever
Fay
reason,
was
that
well
dry brake
aware of
didn't
when he
break
spoke
dry.
to Wall Street Week.
And actually, you can see the flames coming up, so all that fuel is going down onto the under tray, and you'll see when he drives away, the flames will go out over the top. Sometimes they spray water on the car when it departs, and just underneath the under tray, you'll start to see a small flame will still stay on board.
In 2027, Ford is set to debut a line of
As
EVs
he's on
starting
track.
at around $30,000, which Farley describes as a response to BYD. But he's also talked to the Trump administration about forming joint ventures with Chinese firms to build cars locally. Volkswagen and Stellantis have already made similar deals. And as each car maker and country decides how to respond to China's rise, they must grapple with the costs and benefits of protectionism.
Absolutely,
or
very scary.
alternative.
Normally when you see these
If you
teams
can't
make a
beat
pit
them,
stop and add fuel,
join 'em.
you'll see someone spray water across the cowl at the fueling nozzle. That water against the hot cowl keeps that fuel that leaks out from igniting. There was no water being sprayed. Number one, as you saw, one of the rear changers there was in front of the fire extinguisher. They couldn't reach the fire either because the crew member was blocking the fire extinguisher. So two issues. Unfortunately, the fire extinguished himself, but they got very, very lucky.
Graham Rahal pits from the lead, Rick.
Here's Graham. He's actually been really happy with the car. He's running what we'll call the New Garden strategy. Remember, New Garden came in and pitted on off strategy? Well, Rahal's doing exactly the same thing. Their plan is to try to keep this car in a different strategy at the end of this race.
Robert Wickens also in. Carlos Munoz, Stephen Wilson all pitting on this lap. So that's going to cycle Zach Clayman DeMello back to the lead in front of Will Power, who is now around Ed Carpenter and at the head of the guys on that other pit stop schedule. So there is Clayman DeMello for Tony Kanaan. An important pass here if he can make it, because he is the first car one lap down. If he can get around Clayman DeMello and then catch a caution, he's back on the lead lap and back in the cycle.
Very unlucky with that flat tire. I think the other car is going to be coming into the pits.
Clayman DeMello pulling left to signal to Kanaan his intent.
We'll put your lap down.
Yes. There we go.
Smartly breathed the throttle going into four because he knew the speed from DeMello in front of him would slow down dramatically. Smart job by a veteran.
Rick?
Zachary Clay Clayman DeMello, the rookie, brings the car in. Michael Cannon, his strategist, has been talking him through this whole race, giving him advice, telling him what to do, where to be on the track, how to handle everything. When you're a rookie, this is exactly what you need, and Michael Cannon is a good guy to have in his ear. Not a quick stop, 9.4 seconds, but the job here for a rookie is just to get out cleanly.
Well, they've got him off cycle on the strategy, so depending how the cautions play out, you can, in a race where track position is important, you might steal a lot of positions, and at Indianapolis, a lot of money by doing that.
And it all depends on where the yellow falls, where the inevitable yellow falls.
Yes. So there's your new leader, Will Power. 37-year-old from Australia, originally now living outside of Charlotte in his 11th 500. He drives for Roger Penske. We said before the race, when you drive for Roger Penske, you are expected to win the 500.
The only thing that's missing for him is an Indy 500 win, because he has won everything else. And he's definitely on a road course, one of the fastest qualifiers. Always a good fun to watch.
Will struggled en route to becoming a champion of this series because his oval track racing wasn't what it needed to be. Solve that riddle.
This is
a champion, is a contender to win this Indy 500,
IMF
Rick.
met in Washington last week.
Well,
its
yeah,
mission
think
of
about
providing
this. So
global
Will
financial
Power
stability has
talks
never
about the
been
fact
more
that in
important.
2015
But
they
one
had
of
a
the
great set of
key
cars. This year he
participants
said he
expressed
feels the
doubts about
cars
whether
are as
it's up to
good
it,
as they
whether
were
it
in
is still fit
2015.
for its
He
very
lost that
important
race. He
purpose.
finished second to Juan Pablo Montoya. Well, this year, his strategist, John Boslog, is the same strategist who was the strategist for Juan Pablo Montoya in 2015. So Will goes into this race thinking he's got a little extra advantage knowing what happened in 2015.
That core mission
I have talked with Will on several occasions over the last week and a half. Will has been as calm could be, as quietly confident as confident can be. We're in the envelope. Yeah, it's good. Everything's great. No, I think we're on top of it. He's a man who knows what he's looking at in this race and hopes at the end of the day he's got a really up-close look at a brick that he'd like to plant a big old kiss on. Will Power is the race leader. There are several stories of this day to talk about. One, the final race of Danica Patrick's career. Of course, coming here after running at Daytona earlier this year in the Daytona 500, saying the Danica double would be her last race. That's not the way she wanted the final drive of her racing career to end. A crash into the outside wall in turn number 2 at lap 68 would be the final circuit. Mom Beth looking on. Danica did fly from the car and was okay. We did hear from her earlier.
Until she joined the
Patrick is done and will finish in 30th place in this her last Indy 500.
As the first deputy managing director.
You saw during our side-by-side coverage Kyle Kaiser's first Indy 500 come to an end for the Hukos racing team. Mechanical issue has knocked the youngster from Santa Clara, California from the field. So that gives us now 5 cars out of the race. Of the 33 starters, 4 of the 5 by crashes. Ed Jones, Takuma Sato, James Davison also out of the race in accidents.
At Boston University. We don't know where this war is going.
So lead lap, 22 of the 33 starters.
Global growth.
Most laps led today belongs to Ed Carpenter. He was the dominant driver of the opening 150 miles of the race, and then he got passed by Tony Kanaan after a couple of restarts. The first one he got the lead right back. The second one he did not. Now Carpenter 4.7 seconds behind Will Power, with still a long ways to go in this race.
And we talked earlier in the show, drivers are going to be worried about the performance of the car over 500 miles, chasing track conditions, chasing the heat that we have here. Eddie, is no different than when you and I drove. Communicate back to the pit lane, tell them what you're feeling inside the car, make the car fast and comfortable for you. As Rick Mears always did here, a four-time winner, he wanted the fastest car that he had of the day at the very end of the race.
But I think this is a different race than what we've seen in the past, as much as these cars are very sensitive to changes. When they're behind somebody, they have a lot of push. But if you start tuning for that too much, you can get caught out like Ed Jones and Danica Patrick did, where they just lost control of the car. And they were both talking about push, but what actually happened is they looked like they overcorrected and it went the other way. So you can tune for being in front, or you can tune for being in second place. And the next thing that we've learned is that whoever's in the lead of the restart, you're a sitting duck that first corner.
Countries for the IMF. Some traffic here for the race leader. Next weekend, a doubleheader in Detroit. Raceway at Belle Isle Park. Verizon IndyCar Series Detroit Grand Prix presented by Steel. Saturday and Sunday. Next weekend, 3:30, both days on ABC. Willpower for Team Penske out in front. 300 miles in the books. Back after work from your ABC station. The Indianapolis 500-mile race just across its 300-mile mark here in Indianapolis on a 93-degree day. It is a steamy one. There is your leader, Willpower, who got caught up in a little bit of traffic, saw a 4-second lead shrink to 1, now has built it back up to 3 seconds after clearing some of those lap cars.
A firefighter like the IMF may not be directly driven by politics or differences in economic approaches, but those politics and differences can sometimes create more fires to fight.
Radio and him about a fuel number that they would like him to hit before he has to pit the next time. So Carpenter just ahead of Simon Pagenaud in the 22, runs third, over series champion. Another one that's been very quietly confident throughout the week of oval track practice here. Then it's Ryan Hunter-Reay and Elio Castroneves, 4th and 5th. Hunter-Reay right there, moved up nicely. Don't count him out. He sure knows what he's doing to try and win this race. And Marco Andretti just made a move to pit lane.
Yes, and he's been happy with the car, but this is a little out of sequence. If you stop now, you'll have 2 more stops till the end of the race. Ryan Hunter-Reay, for example, his teammate, they've just told him, we only expect to make 2 more stops to the end, so they're giving him a fuel number. But look at this. He's chasing down Pagenaud.
Elio Castroneves there, back in 5th place.
It's not just
cycled as low as 23rd in some of the green flag pit stop cycles that we've had during the course of the race, but very solidly there all day, though not really contending for the lead at any point in the race.
He's gaining knowledge. He's figuring out where to put his car. And if he's in the top 3, he's somebody you're going to have to race against.
And what I liked earlier is that he said he didn't want to use the front wing any further. He wanted to make the car better by going on tire pressure. That was a smart move because it gives him the wing later on in the race.
Starting with Scott Dixon, running 6th.
Largest economy in the world, they should have the second most voting, but the U.S. in the last iteration of increasing
started in 9th position. Here's Ed Carpenter in 73 laps to go. Doc
changes.
And very interesting there, really wanting him to hit a fuel number, and you got to be wondering if they're thinking about maybe getting some yellows and somehow pushing the envelope and making it on 1 more stop. They talked about that yesterday in the garage.
Whether it's the U.S. or China,
didn't talk about making any wing change. They mentioned air pressure. Basically just trying to stay out of trouble and get good fuel mileage. 7.4 seconds for the pole sitter.
Mateus Laced also on and off the pit road with Ed Carpenter on this lap.
To conditions on loans that some find
Simon Pagenaud is going to peel off and hit the pit lane along with Elio Castroneves. So the Penske team car is in here for a 55-lap green flag run at this point since the last restart. And here they're in with 72 to go. Rick?
Yeah, Simon Pagenaud was actually complaining of a vibration just a short time ago. And they said, look, we're going to pit in just 2 or 3 laps. Can't do anything about it right now. That might explain why he wasn't doing as well as he could on the track. Nice quick stop, Doc.
Elio Castroneves, Roger keeps talking about what a great fuel number. He's getting a little slow leaving the pit. That probably cost him an extra second or so. But Roger said, I'm very impressed. He'll have a great job with the fuel.
And from the lead, Will Power heads for the pit lane. Ryan Hunter-Reay will take over the number 1 spot.
The design looks like
Power working his way down toward his crew, Rick.
What they need, but they don't. They have
yeah,
no
Will Power actually they made some adjustments on the car in the first couple stops, but they did not make any adjustments on the last stop. They also were talking about fuel. Will Power came on the radio and asked the team, did he need to do anything with regards to fuel? They're like, nope, you're good. Keep doing it the way you're doing. 7.1 second stop.
Just as the thinking.
Great pit stop for 7.1 seconds. When drivers are coming in the pit lane, you see them reach up to their helmet and tear something off. That's a clear, thin visor strip that gets dirty as they're running. They take it off during the pit stop so they have a clear track ahead of them to be able to see out the visor.
Ryan Hunter-Reay following Max Chilton down the pit lane. Jan?
details
with an
about
incredible
where
charge
the
through the
spending cuts
field.
would happen.
Look for Ryan
I
Hunter
think
Ray.
that
They're going
was,
to add a
a
half turn, a
strategy
front
that was
wing,
appropriately
and they have been
rethought,
coaching
and
him,
now
giving him a
is
fuel number. Team says
targeted
he doesn't
around
necessarily
spend.
have the fastest car in the zone, but he's obviously making hay when he is in traffic.
Says that you need to increase spending
So it's a 7.1 second, Doc.
because you are in a crisis, and this is
Here's
particularly
Scott
challenging
Dixon coming
time
in for his
for
stop,
them.
and Dixon,
So
again,
far
we
more
talked about him
targeted
trying to get
in
water
terms
in
of
the car.
what's needed
We want to
with
watch here
spending
Blair
reductions.
Julian,
I mean,
the crew chief, the
unfortunately,
outside
spending
front tire
reductions
changer. Here's
are
Dixon
always
coming in.
part of the
They want to be
solution,
flawless here.
because
Would
that's
love
the
to be
only
in
way for the country to
7.2
come
seconds or less.
to
Watch the
a
clock
more
left
stable
lower front
macro
screen.
environment
Four
without
tires on Dixon
racking up
away.
a large amount of debt.
Pretty good pit stop
These
for
policies
Dixon.
are never easy.
Tony
they're
Kanaan,
difficult.
Alexander
I think the
Rossi
IMF
also wanted him
has
off the pit
evolved
lane
over
under
time in
this
terms
lap.
of
Remember
making
Kanaan
it better
leading
tailored
the
to
race
country
earlier, made a pit
circumstances.
stop, then had to come back in after he suffered a puncture and set him back at the tail end of the lead lap. So Sebastian Bourdais is your leader in that 18 car. He's running just behind Connor Daly, who is now on the tail end of the lead lap with this cycle of pit stops. Joseph Newgarden runs second, Graham Rahal third, Robert Wickens fourth, Carlos Munoz fifth, all of them on an off-pit strategy from what some of the leaders like Power and Pagenaud and Carpenter have been doing.
And these different strategies have put a Honda engine in the lead with Bourdais, so we'll see how strong he is
Everybody has to pay
towards the
attention
end
to
of this
it,
run.
including the IMF. So even though the IMF has a relatively
All the
shorter
drivers
horizon
are
in terms of
working
the
out a
kinds of
plan in
problems
their
it deals
head
with,
as to what
AI
they
is
need, just
something
like
that
you're
they
saying,
cannot
Scott,
not pay attention to.
handling-wise.
So they are
That was
in the
Bourdais'
near
radio
term,
saying pit this
just
lap, so we'll
looking
see
at
him in.
where most of the AI development is
Oriel
happening,
Serbia
AI
just
adoption
off
is
the pit
happening.
lane.
It is happening in the more advanced world, and I would say China among the emerging markets. But
So
everywhere
getting
else,
down to
it's
the
not
point where
as-
can they make it on
it's-
one
the
more
momentum
stop
is
if we
not as
don't
strong.
see
So at least in the
another
near
caution
term, you could see
flag?
a divergence where you would have more productivity growth coming out of the U.S. relative to, say, developing countries. But hopefully
Driver's going to
over
slow from
time,
200 miles an
when
hour
developing
down to
countries figure
60
out
while
how to
going through the
deploy
opening
AI for
between the pit wall
close their
and the
skill
inside
gap
wall.
to make sure we don't have scarcity of doctors and teachers and technicians, that you can close the skill gap through AI.
Whether it's AI
And then find
or
your pit
emerging
box
China
among the maze
or
of
a breakdown
crews
in
and cars.
macroeconomic consensus, Gallagher says it's hard for an IMF fit for its purpose in 1944 to remain so today. And that has led some to
A year
call
ago,
for
he was standing
fundamental
on
reform.
crutches. Today, he's been standing on the gas. We're going to do a half a turn of front wing. Carl or Dale Coyne is over there with the water to spray on the fueling nozzle to make sure they don't have a fuel issue. There's a half turn away. There goes the water. There goes Bourdais. Almost 9 seconds, so about a second and a half faster than they wanted to be.
just needs to get bigger. Two, it needs to get better. It
So
needs to
Joseph
tailor its
Newgarden is the
programs
leader. They're
to
now the
country
top five. Those
circumstances.
first
If it's an
four
external
on a
shock,
different
it
pit
should just
strategy.
give
We'll see
short-term
how it plays
liquidity
out
without
in the
austerity
closing
conditions.
laps of the
And
race.
it needs to be more inclusive. The countries that,
Troubled Sebastian
are,
Bourdais has
biggest
crashed and the
recipients
yellow
need more
flag
say
is
in
out
program
in
design.
the
Those are
Indy
the three
500.
things. Make it bigger, make it better, make it more inclusive.
Up next, the billionaire next door. They may not be as famous as Elon Musk, but there are more of them around than you might suspect.
It's sad to see someone who worked so hard to come back here and to have such a good car to compete in this Indianapolis 500-mile race.
Just hang out there, wait for safety to get you. They're coming.
So this the fourth caution of the race. Wow.
These cars are so difficult to control when they're on the limit. When you're behind somebody, you get caught up in dirty air and you have a little bit too much steering in. He just had a tank slapper. Whereas the last years, you'd have had 800 to 1,000 pounds more downforce to help you. Look at that. He just barely got sideways and then lost control. This is all happening at 220 miles an hour.
The cars being so safe today. You see that white barrier that we have in front of the concrete wall, the safer barrier that we see on the upside there. Watch the steering wheel right now.
Almost
He corrects
caught it.
I almost got it. It comes back the other way. I've lived that. Then it starts to go into what you call, Eddie, as you mentioned, a tank slapper. Now you're along for the ride.
And you want it to go in
into
backwards.
that safer barrier that's put there. Designed by the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, steel and foam energy reduction really helps soften the blow to cars hitting the wall.
So thinking forward as to what they're going to use, they've got to get the right sort of amount of downforce on the front.
61 laps to go. Someone said they needed a caution to make it to the finish on fuel. We'll talk about that next. cleanup continues here at Indianapolis Motor Speedway onto the fourth caution of the 500-mile race after Sebastian Bourdais crashed in turns 3 and 4. The leader is Will Power. Tony Kanaan is on the tail end of the lead lap now and will get to take a wave around the pace car and rejoin the end of the pack and the lead lap after having that flat tire while contending for the lead earlier. Jan, this caution and the timing of it really kind of sets up a strategy scramble to the finish for some folks.
Yes, it does. And you mentioned that there was a radio communication of someone who needed a yellow. Well, that was Marco Andretti. So this gives him an opportunity to get back on cycle. It also helps his teammate, Ryan Hunter-Reay, who was saving a bit of fuel. Now he'll be able to go use more fuel and get speed on track. Alan?
All right, so it'll be interesting to see. Some of the people stopped with about 70 laps to go, 59 to go now. Who's going to win the Indianapolis 500? Still very much in doubt. 57 laps to go in the Indianapolis 500. Our telecast presented by Firestone. ABC Live at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway for the 54th consecutive year. What I called a tactical race earlier, certainly playing out that way now with this amount of time left. Rick?
That's exactly right. You know, it was a dicey situation for Will Power on fuel. They were hoping they were going to make it. Now with all this yellow, I just checked with the strategist, John Boslog, and I said, one more stop? Can you make it that fast? And he nodded his head, thinking that's the plan. Interestingly enough, point out the Power pitted later than the people behind him, a lap or two later. By the way, they just gave him one bit of advice. Drink out of the bottle.
Well,
This is a story
check
about
in
your
with Doc.
next-door neighbor. This yellow, a huge break for Ed Carpenter. I just talked to Tim Boyle. They would have been very, very close and probably would have been a lap or so shy of making it. With this yellow now, they can stretch it to just beyond lap 165. And if they're careful in the draft, they can make it on one more stop on fuel. They really got the horsepower, and they got a strong car. The question is, would they have fuel? This yellow would have given them enough fuel to have a shot to win this race.
Again, with the variable settings, engine mappings, fuel consumption rates, and so on, how fast can you go and still have the fuel to make it on that one more stop if we don't see any more yellows?
And the other side about that too, Alan, is not just the fuel to make it, but you have to go racing at the end of it. You need 100% fuel, 100% horsepower. If you're throttling back and the guy behind you has fuel to burn, you're sitting duck.
Here we go, restart with 55 laps to go in the race.
See how Power does. Every time Carpenter was in front, he lost the position.
Hunter-Reay with a move on Pagano.
In North America, Kinder Morgan.
I like unglamorous business.
Pagano fends it off.
It never bothered me in the least to be in an unglamorous business.
Kinder is part of a cohort of high net worth yet unassuming
Castroneves
individuals
tries to
that
attack.
economists
Look at
call
Rossi
the
on the
everywhere millionaires,
outside.
or in his case, billionaires.
Alexander Rossi with the move of the race.
You just don't do that with these new cars. But he did.
You can tell we're getting towards the end of the race.
Owen Zeider is an economics professor at Princeton University who served on the Council of Economic Advisors during the Obama administration. He now focuses his research on tax policy as it pertains to high net worth individuals. His research will be published in a book titled The Everywhere Millionaire later this year.
And Everywhere Millionaire is a private business owner who is wildly successful, but usually operates under the radar based on the place or the industry that he or she is operating in. So you should think of
Castroneves racing in 5th position
who has a big vacation
and now
home
crashed
like
out
a
of the
really
race.
nice boat. And there are a ton of them, and they're in basically every neighborhood in America. So the way
Roger
we measure
Penske
wealth
left to look and
is
say what happened.
Two components. We look at assets and people's debts. And
Eddie,
so
as you mentioned,
there
as you
are
get
five main
closer to the
types
end of the
assets.
race, drivers are
There's
thinking about
pension
track
wealth,
position.
private
Listen
business
to the
wealth,
roar of the
public
crowd.
business wealth, fixed
Spider-Man.
income, and housing. And so we basically add this all up for different projects. Now on the debt side, most debt is housing debt. There's some student loans and car payments, that sort of thing. And what we do is we just take the difference of market values.
Let's hope we
and
see him
that's your
again at
net
the
worth.
Speedway.
According to Zeider's research, top earners derive most of their wealth from equity in businesses they founded or invested in.
For the yellow car.
Dentists.
Wow.
Same
Dentists
thing. That's the
have
same thing we've
more
been seeing
revenue
all day.
than the total
Ryan
revenue
Hunter-Reay
of every
directly
professional
behind him, and
sports
Alexander
team in
Rossi
America.
made
So
some
the NFL,
brilliant moves
the NBA,
not to get collected in that
MLB,
accident.
All of their revenue combined is smaller than the revenue dentists make.
Manufacturing drives almost half of all corporate profits, but it makes up just a small share of the income going to millionaire-owned
Back
private
end's
businesses.
light, it comes around.
Instead,
you cannot
these owners
control
cluster
that.
in sectors like professional services, construction,
right along
and
now,
finance.
listen.
What results is a quieter kind of wealth, earned through ownership ownership stakes in privately held firms rather than big publicly traded companies.
Most people think you have to be Jamie Dimon or Elon Musk, these really famous
so difficult as a
public
driver
company
because you know you're
CEOs to be
backwards and
really
you're about
rich.
ready to hit
But
something.
when you
Just
look
sit
in the data,
and
there are
wait.
1,000 private business owners.
This would be a good
who
view from
have
Hunter Ray.
At least $10 million in net worth for
And this,
every public
folks,
company
this is
CEO.
just
You don't
reaction.
have
This
to
is no
follow the
thinking.
traditional white-collar
The smoke is
path.
there. You dive through it. You
Kinder
hope
is
you've
one of
gone
those
to the right
individuals.
place.
After studying law and
Spotters
serving
up
in the
top
JAG
are
Corps,
yelling to their
he transitioned to the private
drivers,
sector.
go high, go
He was
low,
general counsel of
and
a
he
small
is
energy
clear. He
company
made it
that,
through
through a
safely.
series of mergers, later
This
became
new car
Enron.
is
He
very
eventually headed up
unforgiving.
operations there, which consisted mainly of pipelines. After leaving Enron, Kinder decided to double down on that expertise. You bought pipeline assets from
Yep,
Enron.
he can hear the fans.
And at that
That's
time, the
not how
company
he wanted
treated it as kind of
this INDY 500
unwanted
to end, for sure.
relics of the old economy. What did you see in the pipelines that perhaps others didn't?
Well, I saw that there was an opportunity to take midstream assets, and if you ran them correctly and really watched the
Now, Rick
bottom
Mears in
line
the white shirt,
carefully, had a good
one of the
mix debt
spotters
and
for
equity
Castro
that you
Neves,
could,
the four-time champion.
build those pipelines in a way,
As well as
that
AJ
would,
Foyt, a
allow
four-time
your stock
champion, Al
price to
Unser, the
grow,
other
and then you could use
four-time
that stock
champ.
price to make
And
acquisitions
for
of other
Castro
companies.
Neves,
And that was
his
really
ninth
our
attempt
game
at that
plan, yeah.
fourth win
We started with
will
really
come
a
up
tiny
dry
company.
today.
We had
Watch real time from
market
Hunter
cap
Ray.
of the company, the value on the stock exchange, about $150 million.
That's
and we
as
had
much
about
time as he had to make
$150
that
million
decision.
of debt. So
Jan?
overall, the
Elio stopped for a
enterprise
moment on
value
his
of what
walk
we
down
started
pit
with
road.
was
Very
just a little
frustrated when you get out of the
north
car. What happened?
$300 million, and we had
Got a good move in
175 employees.
Ryan, and
we
had
this
the momentum. I
idea
thought
that we would
probably want to win
look
wide.
for
In three,
assets,
probably was a
we
little
would
bit of
run
a
as efficiently as we could.
dust
We
in the
would bend
tires,
over
and then as soon as
backwards
it came
to
turn
serve our
three, I was
customers,
eager to go and trying to
we
pass
would
time up, but
provide
then
good
the rear
return to
just
our
gave up.
shareholders,
So
and
was
that's
not
kind of the
expecting. Never
mantra
had
that we've
any sign,
followed
but
for almost 30 years now.
And you built
it's
it through
frustrating. Car was
acquisitions.
good.
Built it through
Definitely was very
acquisitions
tough
and
out there,
also
but
just some build out ourselves. We today,
Please,
for
Roger, we gotta
example,
go back.
we spend,
I know you want to
about,
come back. It looked like
between
everyone
$3
turned
and
up the
$3.5
juice there
billion
on that
a
last
year
restart.
on,
Now it's getting
building new
serious.
pipelines.
Yeah, of
The
course. I
trick
mean,
is
it's
don't overpay.
60 laps
Do
to
what's
go,
fair
50 laps
and
to go.
right to produce an adequate
Now I
return
start
for your shareholders.
pushing, and we're
Sounds
saving
like a very
fuel, and
predictable business.
yeah,
then.
people start like
I think
going
it
for it,
is.
and that's
It's,
why I saw the opportunity. That's
you know,
time to go,
no
but
business without risk.
misjudge a
and,
little bit the tires.
old saying that
All right,
the-
everyone here also,
it's the
Elio,
unexpected
wants you to be
that
back
always
as
gets you.
well.
Who could have anticipated what we're going
Safety
through in the
crew
Middle
trying to
East
get
today?
Elio to go take the trip to
Who
the
could have
medical
anticipated
center.
COVID,
Castro
but
Neves
if
wants to
your
go down and talk to
business
his
is
team
built on
first,
a
and we
solid
appreciate him stopping to talk to
you can
us.
weather whatever storms come
So,
along.
fifth yellow flag of the race is out for the four-time champion Elio Castro Neves. Cleanup underway. We're back after a
Rich
word
Kinder
from your
made it into the
ABC
ranks of
station.
the Everywhere Millionaires and beyond. But what about the rest of us?
Speaking of
What
coverage,
are the chances
Elio
we can
Castro
join
Neves,
him?
a popular guy here,
This
getting a
was
lot
the,
of
I think,
coverage on
second
his
or
walk
third
back
place that we
to the
saw.
medical center
That's
after
the plan
crashing
for
out of
folks
the
like
race.
Ray and Dana Cherry.
Crashing
husband and
has
wife
been
team
a
left their
theme
corporate jobs a
of the
couple of
day
years ago
in this 500-mile race.
to buy
There
a
have
rather
been
unassuming
5
business
different
in the San
accidents
Francisco
in the
Bay
race
Area.
so far.
Monsam
One
Portable
involving
Six.
Roger
We assessed
Penske's driver that he was
hundreds of
calling the
businesses
strategy
in this
for.
process, and when it came down to which
And
ones we were
really,
going
it's
to buy,
been
it was
the
a very
story.
short
This
list,
new
maybe
Indy
4 or
car
5.
proving as
And
difficult
for us, the focus
for the
was
drivers on a
on,
hot day like
the
this as some of them
profitability of the company,
speculated
that
it might be.
consistent
saw
profitability,
Takuma Sato run up
that
back
the
of
business
James
itself was
Davison. You can
near
see he
to
goes
where
up
we
for a
live,
ride. James
and
Davison
that the
just going
product
too
or
slow
the
for the
service that it was
pace.
offering
Takuma
was something
Sato,
that
no
was
place left to go.
unique and that we
Car
felt like
slid
we
up
could
and
come
caught the
into
back end, went
and
up and
learn
over the
quickly
tires.
and move to the
Ed
next
Jones
level.
involved in trouble off turn 2.
He just lost the back end of turning into 2, and once that happens, there's nowhere you can end up except the wall. But they're very unsuspecting. All these spins are uncharacteristic of this car.
And 10 laps after the Jones crash, Danica Patrick's racing career came to an end with that hit.
Much the same as Ed Jones in that scenario. The back end went around.
over 11,000
As we mentioned, very
customers.
similar to the
And
previous
all of
accident,
that
but
is
there
really
she
exciting.
climbed into the car, one of the most popular drivers that we've had in any sport, NASCAR or INDYCAR.
Decide to become owner
Little trouble on pit road for Zach Veach. Yikes.
Had really successful
crew all able to manage that situation effectively, but difficulty with the dry brake, spraying some fuel on the hot car. But no one hurt. Sebastian Bourdais in a crash at lap 138.
He almost caught it, then it got away from him, and he spun many times before he got the wall, which is always good because it takes off speed.
Take a shot at ownership.
They started this race in 5th position on his day, not coming to an end the way that he wants to back in 28th. And Elio Castro-Neves, who started in 8th position, running in the top 5,
purchase a
had that
business where
crash
there was already
off of
product
turn
market
number
fit
4.
that was
We heard him
already
say it was now
established
time to get more
and
aggressive,
had
getting
a
closer
path
to the end of the
have this
race.
come in and
Watch
take it to
this.
the next level made perfect sense.
And
We
as a
spoke with an
driver, you're
economist,
waiting
Paul
for the
Insider,
impact.
and he
There it
said
is.
that
And
a lot
Roger
of American
Penske
wealth is
did
built
say
through
to
private
Elio,
and
if you
what he
win the
calls
race,
boring,
I'll bring you
often
back
overlooked
next year.
businesses.